Hi, this is John. I just want to talk a little bit why off-grid electric heating for RVs and vans probably isn't feasible at the moment. Now, this is actually a shorter version of the video I did earlier, which was something like 18 minutes, and I realized that might have been a little too much for some people, so I'll just try to hit the highlights in this video, and then if you really want to get the full details, you can go back and watch that one. And the reason for this is batteries are lousy for storing heat. Now, let's just think a little bit, think a little bit about the amount of energy that a battery can store compared to how much just a simple 1 pound bottle of propane. Even a little 1 pound propane bottle can hold a lot more heat energy than a 100 amp hour battery, 12 volt battery that is. And if you go by the recommendation of that they recommend with deep cycle batteries that you don't discharge them less than 50%, let's just say it would take 10 of those big batteries, which aren't cheap by the way, and just to equal the heat energy in 1 pound of propane, which isn't very big. 1 pound of propane is not going to last you that long, maybe just a couple hours on a cold night. And so I just want to talk about this little experiment I did. So what I did is I used a 1500 watt space heater and I put it in my van, which I insulated actually pretty well, and it was actually a small minivan. And what it was is, and so I got it to the point to where it was 70 degrees inside when it was 20 degrees outside. And what I found is that actually it would take a 1500 watt space heater constantly going to keep it nice and warm on a moderately cold day. I guess I live in Minnesota, so I guess that's why I'm calling that a moderately cold day. Maybe in a lot of places that would be like extreme cold, but but really 20 degrees isn't that cold when you're living someplace up north. So anyway, so yeah, that's what it would take, is actually this 1500 watt space heater going all the time. Now you could actually easily, now once you know that it's a 1500 watt space heater, you could pretty easily figure out how much energy it would take and how long your battery would last going at that rate. So you can go back and look at this formula later if you want to, but the basic idea here, and yeah, this is what I had on the original slides. You can just ignore that. So I said even in a small van at a pretty mild temperature, a 100 amp hour battery would only keep the temperature at a good temperature for about 80 minutes. But actually, it was assuming you totally discharge the battery. So really, it turns out it's actually more like 40 minutes. So that big old battery that is probably going to cost you something like $120 and it's really heavy, is only going to be able to keep you nice and warm for about 40 minutes under those conditions. So that's not very good at all. You would need like a ton of those batteries to keep you warm. And so that's what makes it not very feasible, is you would need like you'd need something like 8 of those batteries to keep you warm all night or something like that, and then they'll just be really heavy and so forth. Now there is some hope for off-grid electric heat, and the first part is, yes, if you super insulated it and super sealed it up, you could get those numbers to improve, so it might start to be more feasible. And let's say if it was like only 40 degrees out and you're trying to get to 70, then that would be a lot easier for you as well. And then if you use some kind of heat pump, that would also increase it as well, because with heat pump you can actually get more efficiency. So let's say it takes 1500 watts of heat to keep your van at a good temperature, then if a heat pump, you might only have to use, like, let's say 700 watts or maybe 400 watts, because I don't want to go too much about how a heat pump works, but it actually uses the energy to transport heat instead of just directly giving you heat from the resistance from the current. So you can actually come up with, but there's limits to how low a temperature heat pumps can work at as well. So the conclusion here is not that it's totally impossible, but just that why it's really going to be difficult, and why so far I haven't really heard of anybody actually doing this. So let's see. And then hopefully, of course, if future batteries ever get better, then there would also be more possibility. And anyway, so hopefully in the future it might be more of a possibility.